Okay, so I've started the recording. Let me share my screen real quick. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 13th community call. And today we will discuss the latest updates from OpenAI that they've announced on Monday during OpenAI Dev Day. Yes, I'll start with a small story from myself, like how that happened from my perspective. But first, keep in mind that this call will be recorded. So if you'd like to say something that you would like to cut out of the call eventually, please reach out to me and we would be able to handle that. So how it started? On Monday, November 6th, I'm located in Europe, so the time zones and basically the timestamp that's present on those tweets is, I guess, 10 hours before the OpenAI actually started their meeting. So as you can see, the screenshot on the left is basically the tweet that I've seen in the afternoon, like 10 hours before the OpenAI call, and it contained like some really provocative information. So Daniel said that leaked OpenAI pricing page had GPT-4 Turbo with more than 100,000 token context, DALL-E 3 API, a lot of other cool updates, etc. And honestly, this person also mentioned that this model will be even cheaper than the original GPT-4. And as the source, Daniel referred to the user from the Reddit, and you can see the screenshot on the right. This is the entire page of that Reddit user. So he's got like literally 2 comments on his account and 1 post in the OpenAI subreddit where he told about those insights, that there will be like some mind-blowing GPT updates, pricing will be lower, efficiency of those models will be higher, etc., etc. So it felt like it was like a cheap clickbait for the likes and for the sake of basically to trick people into believing that this whole thing was true. So that's why basically this post, and yeah, the way this post has been put, the wording was like extremely like I would not believe that by any chance. So as you can see, it gained like 300 karma, and he literally says, by the way, I refreshed the page and it disappeared. So the user referred to the pricing page on the OpenAI website that he randomly opened and seen all those turbo models with the lower price, having the higher like token limits, etc., etc. And honestly, I was not buying it, and that's exactly what I said. Like, I'm not buying it. Hope I'm wrong. And this was, as I mentioned, like 10 hours before the OpenAI call. And would you believe it? Like OpenAI call happened like 11 p.m. my time. So I went to sleep, and the next day when I've opened the actually it was several hours after the OpenAI call ended. So I've got a reply like, looks like it was all true. So who could believe that basically OpenAI would release the model that is times more powerful, faster, and make it even cheaper. So it sounded like a clickbait, but eventually it was not. So this is the short summary that we will cover today. All the updates that OpenAI published during their Dev Day conf. And we will talk about the GPT-4 Turbo, Assistance API, some of their other products like Retrieval and Code Entrepreneur, new modalities, model customization, making the prices lower, and even copyright shield. So this is a really interesting approach that they are taking from the legal standpoint. And Whisper v3 and consistency decoder is something that we will wrap up this presentation with. So let's start with the main course. GPT-4 Turbo has the knowledge cutoff is as for the April 2023. So basically it's up to date with almost everything that happened during the latest events, the updates, etc., etc. So it has even more data in it. The context now can consume up to 300 pages of text. Like the majority of, like I would not say that a lot of books are suitable for that, but the majority of scientific papers, some manuals, technical stuff, etc., you can throw into this GPT Turbo model, and it will basically give you anything that you'd like to. Like you can chat with those data, like you can do anything. And the interesting thing is that people were mentioning that it's precise with up to 70,000 tokens. And if the number goes higher, the model becomes like slightly less on point. So it starts to hallucinate and so on. So like the closer to the limit, to the token limit, the more chances are that the model will produce incorrect results. But eventually it means that you can like throw 300 pages into the model and expect for a suitable result. And the price is 3 times cheaper for the input tokens and 2 times cheaper for the output tokens, which is like absolutely mind-blowing. I'm already using that in my production applications, and yes, it indeed cheaper, like the prices dropped significantly. From the performance standpoint, I've seen several people performing different benchmarks. Obviously, those are unofficial benchmarks, so the way those people are like testing the performance of those models might slightly differ. We'll see that in the upcoming slides. But the case is that in general, the model became much faster, and this is something that people are already discussing. By the way, feel free to interrupt me if you'll have any questions or you'd like to say something. Like I totally don't mind that at all. So yeah, it became much faster and more efficient than the previous models, even the GPT-4 itself. I've seen a lot of people complaining that they've spent some time integrating with the Claude, the Anthropic version of ChatGPT, but right now the GPT-4 is on top of its game, obviously, with this high context. I have not seen any large language model being able to consume this this type of context. So we'll see how this will evolve in the future, but probably OpenAI will still stay on top of the game with some other techniques that they've implemented that we will discuss a bit further. One interesting thing is that they've improved the function calling. Basically, the function calling is the API gateway for OpenAI that they are using. And if you'd like to receive a JSON format as an output from the ChatGPT, this is the way to do that. So basically, function calling is the functionality that you will use if you'd like to strictly receive the JSON model as the result of your prompt or API call. So the big update to the function calling is that you are able to perform multiple function calls in a single message. So previously, if you wanted to make several calls and receive multiple JSON objects as the result of those calls, you had to do this back and forth with from within your code, like within the code of your application. Right now, you're able to throw several functions into the OpenAI API, and it will return multiple JSON objects for every request. So that way you're able to make your code and your like API interaction much faster and more efficient. And probably the code will be easier to maintain from your side. So this is a small update, but really like useful one. Improved instruction following and JSON mode. So the function calling works perfectly fine if you'd like to strictly receive JSON via the API. But if you'd like to avoid function calling and use the regular prompting and regular like syntax that you are using when calling the Open ChatGPT API directly, you can use that with the response format parameter in the API. So basically, you're just passing the parameter within the API that's telling GPT API to send the response as the regular JSON format, and it will do that for you. So it's kind of easier way if you'd like to avoid implementing function calling, but it does not guarantee 100% success. Like I've seen people complaining that this is not perfect right now, but probably in the nearest future it will. Anyway, the way OpenAI is moving this stuff is really positive because like acknowledging that developers would like to have this like so that API will be reliable from the developer standpoint, and OpenAI acknowledging it, this is the huge step forward and removes a lot of headache when people try to engineer some prompt that will force OpenAI API to get the JSON as the result, and they were failing constantly. So this is the good thing. And also, if you will ask ChatGPT to always respond in some specific format, it will also do that. Again, this is not like a 100% like bulletproof way to force this behavior, but probably like the chances are you will get the right result. Reproducible outputs and log probability. So this is a bit technical thing. You are able to seed use the seed parameter that enables reproducible outputs. So this is a really useful thing for unit testing if you'd like to receive the same results over and over from the API. And log probabilities is the functionality that you will probably use if you'd like to implement a search autocomplete. So this is also one, like those are the small updates, but probably if you'd like to use OpenAI for unit testing, those are the things that you'd like to look into. Updated GPT 3.5. The cool thing is that it became faster as well as the GPT-4 Turbo. And even comparing those two models, like the GPT 3.5 and the old GPT-4, according to Igor, it became 13 times faster. Again, this is in this is by his own testing methodology, so there are no scientific evidence of like how fast those updated turbo models became, but I'm sure in the nearest future we would be able to see how those actually behave and how much faster they would become. It supports 16K context by default. So right now, OpenAI gradually updates their old 3.5 model to support 16K context out of the box, and you don't need to do anything. OpenAI said that they will basically substitute the model from their side, and when calling the regular GPT 3.5 Turbo model, you will get that 16K context out of the box. If I'm not mistaken, right now the context is 4K, probably 8K, but I think it's 4K tokens right now. So this is basically the free update for the same price, and like this is much more convenient for the majority of use cases. improved instruction following. This is something that we've already discussed. If you will ask GPT 3.5 to follow the XML format, it will do so. JSON mode and parallel function calling are the same things that we've just discussed. One of the big things that they've told about, like the Sam and the team told about from the stage, are assistance API. So basically, what are those assistance API are the purpose-built AI that has specific instructions. So you can basically build some API, or like you can basically build an API that has an agent behind it, and that can perform different actions. What like the type of actions we will see on the next slides, but this is basically the first step that will help developers build agent-like experiences within their applications. So if you'd like to make this intelligent chatbot that can perform different actions, Assistance API is the thing that you would like to look into. And it provides new capabilities like code entrepreneur, retrieval, function calling, and handle a lot of different varying tasks. Interesting thing that even several months ago, when those Assistance API were non-existent, I've seen a person who basically gave ChatGPT all the banking credentials from his personal account. So the bank passwords, different card PIN codes, etc., etc. So we will not discuss how dangerous it is in general, but like that person decided to go that way and outsourced this, like his whole financial life to GPT 3.5 at that time, and build some kind of like custom agent around of it with the Python code in a couple days. And eventually, if I recall correctly, that GPT agent saved some money for that person by canceling redundant subscriptions, figuring out different different I guess suboptimal ways this person is spending money, etc., etc. And eventually that agent ended up saving some money for the owner. So even if several months ago GPT 3.5 with like much less capabilities than now was able to do that, I'm pretty sure those Assistance API will disrupt the market in a matter of months. So people are like, even today within our community, we've seen John who posted a product hunt link to basically the site that aggregates those assistants that people are already creating. So you can see that the pace is enormous in that area. People are creating those assistants like every day, and each assistant can perform its unique task. Yeah, the way people are using those are quite funny. So this is the screenshot that posted Sam Altman himself. And what he's done, he asked ChatGPT to create an assistant that will basically produce silly jokes and will answer questions with like cringy humor and etc., etc., and called it Grok. For the context, if you're not aware, Grok is the Twitter version of ChatGPT. It's created by, sorry, not Twitter, but an X. It's created by an X team. They've called XAI, if I'm not mistaken, and they've created Grok as a like updated version of ChatGPT, but with this updated humor and much less restrictions. So the Grok will occasionally swear, it will produce the results that are not treated as safe by the OpenAI standards, for example. And on this screenshot, Sam Altman basically trolls Elon Musk with creating the Grok with the one prompt, like simply making it redundant, creating an entire team within Twitter/X a team to create that LLM that Twitter folks created. So yeah, basically this is like kind of a joke, but it shows how powerful those assistants are. You basically can create like a version of somebody else's LLM, and it will work in like a charm, basically. And the other use cases that are not designed to troll the richest person in the world is the natural language based data analysis app, coding assistant, AI powered vacation planner, etc., etc. So there's like the possibilities are basically limitless. You can do whatever you want and build whatever agent you'd like. You can do anything you want. People, from what I've seen, people are removing the Pine code and LangChain from their code base and relying on the assistance API, and that's it. So I have no idea whether this is an effective move in the long term, but people are really doing that, and hope everything will go fine for them. But this is the way to do that. Like, you can remove the LangChain and the database from your code base entirely, and probably Assistance API will do the job for you. The key changes are persistent and infinitely long threads. This is the thing that I've mentioned some time ago when I've been speaking about GPT-4. So infinitely long threads probably will be the way all large language models will treat conversations in the nearest future. So all those token restrictions and limitations probably will become redundant as well, because those threads and the way OpenAI builds those threads will make those tokens limits basically unlimited. You would be able to throw as much information as you'd like into the large language model and expect to get a decent result. So at least with Assistance API, like, you can add each new message to an existing thread, and this thread will like grow larger and larger. I haven't seen anyone testing that, but in the nearest future, probably we'll see how people will use that as well. So whether there is a limit to those threads, and at which point I'd say the results are becoming less valuable, or the LLM starts to hallucinate, etc. We'll see that. And this is how the assistant playground looks like. You're basically able to configure like your own agent and negotiate with it, and configure an API that you'd like to use in your application. And basically that's it. You've got your own smart like Jarvis-like software on the OpenAI side that you can interact with via the API. So probably the API in the nearest future also will become redundant. We'll see that. And like, OpenAI might be working with some external library that they will build, and you will need to simply include it into your code base and ask to consume the OpenAI API or the Assistant API or anything. So we'll see how that goes. But this is the way it works. Does anyone has any questions so far?
This is Matt. I was out and I had to come back. I had to go out really quick and then come back. But this is Matt Genovese. Has anybody been playing around with the creation of these, what they call GPTs, these apps?
Yeah, I have not yet, but as soon as I'll get some time during the weekend, I will definitely play with that.
So I did last night. Was able to give it a try last night, and I made one in about 20 minutes that I could upload a spreadsheet to with a whole bunch of structured data and start asking it questions and even looking for errors and inconsistencies in the spreadsheet. And I was quite surprised how well it did at highlighting those problems, right? And of course, it wasn't a proprietary data, so this was stuff I was going through and trying to evaluate some data and metrics. But the fact that I could upload 2 spreadsheets and have it start comparing and giving and contrasting, and even, you know, I told it to maybe insinuate or give me some commentary about what it thought on some areas, and it did, and it was quite useful in order to do that. So it's a real smart move by OpenAI to put this together, and software creation is starting to become, or at least, you know, creating point solutions is starting to become very very accessible. If you can write in English, you can do it.
Yeah, even if you can't, OpenAI will help with that, I guess.
That's the truth.
Yeah. The interesting thing I've seen is that somebody created assistant. So basically that was an assistant that helps create other assistants, and you're just asking, like, create an assistant that can help me with like creating an itinerary for my trip abroad, for example, and that would work. And the assistant will create an assistant that will use that prompt that you've asked it to do, and will throw out the bunch of different APIs, etc., etc. So this is the state of things now, like Meta assistants, and everything is managed in a like natural way, using the words and plain English. That's it. So yeah.
So this is Matt. I had 2 questions. So Matt, what you developed last night, how does that differ from just uploading that to, you know, the Chat GPT-4, you know, the standard, you know, tool that's out there?
It's a good question, and I'm not entirely sure either, for that matter. But I believe the concept behind it is that you're giving it rules by which to engage in the content that I've created, or I'm going to create, and then it becomes a repeatable. You know, I could take that link or that app and then share it to other people, and they can engage in that conversation with the very same set of, you know, kind of governing rules I've already created before. So it becomes almost like sharing a set of preconditions and algorithm and governance for how we're going to work with this particular data or the conversation that's going to happen from that point forward. Which is different than just having a chat that you're just continually adding on to, right? So if you have and I've done this before in Chat GPT, like or in GPT-4 in the playground, where you kind of go and you start defining some things like, oh, okay, you're going to behave like this, and this is what the tone I'm looking for and the style and things like that. And then eventually you get further and further along and you save it. But then if you come back later on, it might be using content that you don't necessarily needed to use from a previous conversation, but I still want to have all the rules that I set up before. So I got to go copy and paste those into another chat and start from scratch. So it's kind of a clean way to, I think, define how, you know, what behavior and what objectives you're trying to achieve without always having that same amount of data afterwards that you have to save and then remove later on and things like that. That's my initial assessment.
Very cool. Yeah, that definitely sounds useful. So you could have a community and build a set of rules that make sense for your community, and have an engine that is tailored and could be shared. That sounds powerful.
I mean, for this one in particular, this app, I just told it, hey, we're going to be uploading spreadsheets. By the way, you can also upload files in the creator portion of this, and say, I thought of it last night when I went to bed. I was like, you know, I could have a file that just talks about the spreadsheets I'm going to be uploading, because they're all going to be in the same format. It's just going to be different data. So I could say, here's what this column means, here's what this column means, here's what this column means, and give it that background and have that become part of the app, right? So it always can refer to that document and say, oh, okay, I know the background of this document. I understand the background of the spreadsheet, because I can go back and review the rules that were set up. So it doesn't just have to be setting up some preconditions. You can, in terms of text and, giving rules or commentary. You can also upload files that it can use as part of the process of then executing when you finally go and use it as a chatbot. So it's pretty cool.
You remember, Matt, you were telling me too, where you had previously were using AI against like a piece of literature or whatever and just querying. I have contracts, that I want to query, but I don't have a way like a guardrail. They're secure, I'm just wondering, can I do that? Is there any tool out there you're aware of I can do that and put that, the security or confidentiality guardrails around it, be able to query it with an AI engine, whether this or something.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the challenge with OpenAI right now is that you're using it, and of course you're using their models, and any data that you're providing is going right to them. Even with their apps, right? You're running within their so or their sandbox, and so they're going to have data. The other way to do it is to do something like what we've done at Panorama, where we took an open model and run it on our own hardware. And that way you're not doing anything with OpenAI. You're asking questions, and it's being able to get into the document through a vector database that was already uploaded to a vector database, kind of like Pinecone, and there's other ones too. But you don't even have to. You could host that locally, and then nothing is going to OpenAI. It's all staying within your cloud.
Yeah, actually, OpenAI addressed that issue, and they do have like a plain statement that if you'd like to opt out from like making their model learn on your data, you can do that. And like, I don't know what's the mechanism is, but they are stating that you're able to do that. Probably there is some kind of a switch on the UI that you would like to turn on, or like a setting configuration, but they've addressed that, and it was like pretty like straightforward, I'd say. So yeah, probably this is the big reason people are avoiding using OpenAI at some point and giving them their data, because they are afraid of those leaks. So they've decided to make it obvious.
Okay.
So.
They do have that. They're trying to overcome a PR problem because they trained on all the data that exists in the entire world, and then people got pissed off.
Yeah, and we'll have a slide on that towards the end of the presentation. So they are actively addressing those kind of issues. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. Okay, so
but even if I have a question, even if you have if they don't train on the data, you still can see your data. How do you avoid that?
Well, if they're not, there's two things. There's sending your data to OpenAI just through their API, but you could also do the same thing by just copying and pasting it into their playground. And then the second issue is if they're training on it. Two different things, right? When I send data to OpenAI, it's not training on anything necessarily. I mean, they could decide to do it, but I'm just sending data and expecting that the response is going to come back. And if they decided to, they could just let my question go off into the ether and never see it again. If they're training on it, then obviously the problem is that they might take information that could have been proprietary or something I otherwise didn't want included in their model, and now it becomes part of that language model. And again, what we were doing, the work we were doing at Panorama, just by comparison, this is not an advertisement, but just because we happen to have experience with this, is that you can train these, you can take these open models, and they call them foundation models, and then you can fine tune on top of that and do some additional training if you so desire, to incorporate your data set, or whatever you want to include. Probably that something that's more static into the model, so that when you ask questions and you're getting things, you're getting answers because the model has that information built into it. but that's not the only way to do it. The other way is to basically you ask questions of the model. Again, this model can be an open source model running on your own hardware, and it's pulling data from, or you're actually providing data to it from documents, and it's assembling the answer on the fly. But there's no training happening in the model, and that model is still a general purpose model that can be used for lots of different uses. That's an ideal solution when you have lots of different types of data, and especially if there's different customers using it, you maybe don't want to have a fine-tuned model for every customer, because that can be expensive. So you have a basic model that works for a particular purpose, and then you do this other approach where you're sending information along with the question, so it can formulate the response for you, but the model doesn't change.
Yeah, and if you've got a couple million US dollars, you can order a custom model for yourself. This is also
OpenAI.
an option. Yeah.
Yeah, Visa and MasterCard are taking it.
Yeah.
Let's pool our money.
Pocket change for some that own car companies and single letter Twitter companies, but yeah.
Yeah. By the way, it starts from 3 billion parameters if you'd like to train your own model. So if your data set is less than that, they won't take it into the processing. So yeah.
Okay.
So new tools: code interpreter, retrieval, and function calling. So function calling is not necessarily something new, but like it had some updates in the past, and we've got those updates for the assistant API as well. So the code interpreter is like pretty obvious. It can run Python code in a sandboxed environment. It can generate graphs and charts, and we will see how powerful it is in just a couple of minutes. And it allows assistants to run code internally. So yeah, basically you've got your own coding assistant, like a Copilot, out of the box in the Assistants API. And this is the example. ChatGPT Vision plus code interpreter equals nutrition tracking system. So it can identify the components that are in your, like the pieces of food that are on your plate are treated as the components, and it can figure out how many calories does your food have. It can like log your daily intake and generate graphs and different CSV files based on that if you'd like to go further. And as you can see right now, the author downloads the CSV file. And yeah, you got everything you need, like your protein, carbs, fats, and I have no idea how popular it will become among professional people, professional bodybuilders, people who are doing sports, etc. So like, and it's done in a couple minutes using the Assistants API. So this is like, honestly, this is crazy. And the other thing is the retrieval, the augmented generation people are talking about all over the place right now, the RAG that's referred to that. So you can augment your assistant with the knowledge from your own knowledge base. So your documentation, your Jira items, anything you'd like to throw into the ChatGPT, it will give you the information. In the maths example, those probably can be the Excel documents, CSV documents, anything. And you don't need to compute or store embeddings. And this is huge. This is why people are basically burying vector databases online starting from Monday. Like every day I see tons of different posts where people are saying like vector databases are doomed. Like several months ago, they were on the peak of their popularity, despite the whole concept of the vector database is like 20 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Like the whole idea of making something a vector is like extremely old. It's from the early days of machine learning. It started to gain popularity a couple months ago, and right now people are basically throwing it into the bin saying it's redundant right now. This is crazy to me how fast things are moving right now, but this is the prime example of this happening right now. So you
back
can
up to, I don't think that's necessarily I understand the sentiment, but I think it's a knee-jerk reaction, because the point of vector databases is to get you the information you need that is very specific through the response that you need to generate, to answer the question. The problem with having data, like if, for example, if you were to even train the application, or if it was going to use the history, it doesn't necessarily have a long view of history. It has a long, perhaps, set of tokens that it can review back to, but it doesn't mean that it's linear. It doesn't mean that it's actually going to always pick and find what it needs in a long conversation, right? So what I've heard is that it may do better on the more recently used information, but it may not be able to pick it out from the longer places without some additional work. So I'm not so quick to get rid of vector databases, because they do a great job of getting you information that's relevant. So I think the jury's still out. I think there's a lot of people doing a knee-jerk reaction on that, but we'll have to see in the long term.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. So this statement that I highlighted is basically copy-pasted from the OpenAI keynote. So like, personally, I also think that it's a bit too early to dismiss those vector databases as a concept, because as I've mentioned, they are much, much older than OpenAI itself, and probably will outlive the OpenAI as well. So like, as a concept, but we'll see how that goes. And like, the case is that if you'd like to, as you correctly mentioned, if you'd like to work with like small pieces of data, or like categorize something, that probably will be the case. You can dismiss the vector databases, but if your database, like if your data set is enormous, that probably won't work for the OpenAI stuff right now. Plus the Grok, the Twitter model that I mentioned, they are heavily relying on the vector database. How's that called? Quadrant. Yeah, Quadrant, if I'm not mistaken. This is the open source vector database provider. And yeah, this is the way Twitter team implemented it. So yeah, probably this is not something that will be dismissed as easily as OpenAI would like to, but still, this is something that we'd like to keep our eye on. The like the efficiency of the RAG in general, you can see on that slide, like the accuracy jumped from 45 to 98% with the different activities, and this is probably like a good benchmark for where things are going from now on. And yeah, this is the current state of things, and considering everything will improve from now on, RAG is not going anywhere, and people will augment their data with the large language models everywhere where it's even possible or impossible. People will still find a way to do that, I'm pretty sure. Function calling is also a small update to the assistant API. They are like enable assistants to invoke functions you define. And this is pretty much it. So the new modalities in the API, and I'm started to move a bit faster now since we are a bit out of time, but GPT-4 Turbo can accept images as inputs, as you've already seen in that example with the tracking calories application. And it can generate captions, analyzing real world images, reading documents, etc., etc. I can't even imagine all the possible applications for that, but probably there are more than I can even imagine. So the text-to-speech, it can generate human quality speech from text via the API, and you've got 6 presets and basically 2 types of models. One is optimized for real-time activities and one is optimized for quality. And how it can be implemented is the GPT-4 Vision plus the text-to-speech can basically create a real-time narrator for sport events. A ton of different applications as well, but this is a really prime example of what can be done. You're just throwing a video into the into the GPT, and that's it. It like basically says what happens on the screen and how important it is for the people with disabilities. I can't even imagine. So this is huge. Like, can't even say anything in addition to that. DALL-E 3, you've probably played with that. If not, I encourage you to do so. It's already available, I believe, in the Edge browser from the Microsoft for a month now. I've already generated a bunch of different pictures, a couple logos, and some like for personal use, but probably it will be available in the OpenAI, like the ChatGPT web page in the nearest future. It's already available for the paid people with the premium access. And right now it's available via the API. So you can generate pictures. You can even, one of the interesting use cases, you can copy the style of a professional logo in 2 minutes and produce your own logo based on that. It will require getting the image ID. So you're basically throwing an image into the Open API, into the ChatGPT UI, sorry. ChatGPT will analyze that picture and it will save the picture ID with some additional metadata about the qualities of that picture. Your main task is to ask ChatGPT to give you that image ID, and then you can refer to that image ID in your upcoming prompts. You can ask ChatGPT to update some image using the same styles as another image. You can do anything you want with the styles and the context of that image. So yeah, this is the way you can basically create a logo that will resemble the Starbucks logo in a couple of steps. Model customization, you can fine-tune or create a custom model. So fine-tuning, it's much cheaper than creating a custom models because it doesn't cost 2 to 3 million from the start. It's a bit pricey. If I'm not mistaken, it's 0.3 cents per 1,000 of tokens, but I might be mistaken there. So please double check that. But you're able to fine-tune your model to perform some additional activities if you'd like to avoid using Assistance API for some reason. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there are a lot of different use cases for fine-tuned model instead of the Assistance API.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say something real quick for that screen behind you. That it's what's interesting is that on most times in UX, there's a CAPTCHA put where you just want to prevent them from being a robot. But here they don't put a CAPTCHA. They just say, I've got $2 to $3 million, click submit. That's a very powerful checkbox right there.
Yeah, basically you've got a small form and yeah, this is basically the checkbox that you need to push. So yeah, for the people that use the Visa or MasterCard, I guess. So the only thing to double check whether you've got a limit on your credit card set up correctly. Pricing updates blows my mind, but yeah, the older models are 3 times more pricey than the new ones. This is why I was not I've been 100% convinced that the first gossips around those updates that we will receive on November 6th were basically a lie, or so people tried to trick us. And that Reddit thread that I've referred to, that was basically a joke, but eventually everything was true. I have no idea how that happened, but this is the current state of pricing right now. And as you can see, the prices are extremely low. And if you this is the perfect chance for you to jump on that AI train before everybody else did. So right now it feels like people are still playing with this despite it's around for some time now and a lot of wrappers appeared, etc. But the tool set that OpenAI just released, it's enormous. So yeah, if you can, please do that right now. So the rate limits were increased 2 times in some cases, and you've got your custom rate limiting functionality right now. And the copyright shield. The interesting thing is that OpenAI will now step in and defend the customers. So if you've got a copyright infringement, or like you've got to face legal claims around copyright infringement, the OpenAI will take the responsibility and will try to help you and defend you and figure out whether it's possible. So this applies to generally available features of ChatGPT Enterprise and developer platform, but probably they will roll out this a bit further. So this is the thing I mentioned several minutes ago. OpenAI is actively, they are basically listening to people. They are actively trying to address issues that are appearing around copyright infringement and other things that people are afraid of. So yeah, everything to increase the adoption. And the last slide, Whisper 3 and consistency decoder. So Whisper features improved performance across languages, API support, some additional languages will be introduced in the nearest future. They've open sourcing different stuff, and they've updated the decoder for the stable diffusion. This is it. Thank you very much for being with me on the call. And yeah, we are on time, but if anyone has a couple of questions, I believe we've got a couple of minutes to answer those.
Or to talk about them, yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody? Oh, somebody wrote, has anyone tried generating user interfaces with OpenAI? You know, it's an interesting point, and you know, I happen to run a user experience design firm, and I'm always thinking about that too. I tend to think that while I don't think GPT-4 is able to really generate user interfaces in the way that you would want, like to have a really good user experience, it can generate designs, but it doesn't mean that it's really a good UX for whatever the application is. I think that's on the forefront at some point. There are heuristics that are involved in how to create UX and how to do good UX and how to not do good UX, and I think that can be applied in AI to generate designs that do follow and adhere to certain heuristics. I think Gavin had a question.
Yeah.
I was just going to kind of tag onto that there. I used V0 from Next.js a little bit. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to use that, but it uses, I think it uses GPT-4 behind the scenes. I've probably only used it for like 4 components at this point, but they call it V0 because it's the version 0 of what interface you want to build, right? And that is kind of what it accomplishes. It gives you like a kind of an idea for what you want your components to look like. So I think that's kind of where generating UI is at right now, where it can give you like a basic starting point, or a version 0, and then you kind of plug it into the framework that you're using or the UI framework that you're using. You know, like it generates stuff with using Tailwind, but if you have any kind of other CSS framework or anything like that, you kind of have to adapt it. So yeah, it's just like an idea generator essentially at this point, from my experience with it.
Is it creating the front end in the CSS and HTML, or is it just creating a design, like a vector design?
It's actually generating React components.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I've not seen that before. That sounds pretty cool. I'd love to try it. I'll have to take a look at it. I do tend to think though that's on the horizon at some point, because what do you have to do in UX design? Well, you have to understand the user's mental model, their problems that they're trying to solve, workflows they're accustomed to. All that can be sussed out through language, and to turn that into designs, I think it does not happening right now, but it could, and perhaps you know, even like again defining personas and user interfaces for different types of people and different features. I think there's a level of automation here that is coming.
Yeah, and please share that with the community so that I would test it out, because I've been looking for the tool to generate React components using AI, and all the tools that I've been trying to, they were like a bit unusable, I'd say. So they were a bit rusty. So yeah, please share that with the community and myself as well.
But Gavin, it's from Next.js, is that right?
I don't think so.
I think it's built by Versal, sorry, which is the parent company for Next.js. So yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
And
Right.
it's built by Shad CN, from what I understand, who built that Shad CN UI library, which is really cool. So he's kind of all over the place.
All right.
Okay, yeah, that's cool.
Thanks for the heads up. That's cool. I'd like to check that out.
Yeah, you got it.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much it. Thank you everyone for joining the call. We'll wrap things up, and if you have any questions or would like to discuss a bit further.
Gavin had one.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Max. Yeah, I just wanted to mention one more thing. I watched the GitHub keynote, and in the last like 1 minute, they announced a new AI platform for GitHub, where it essentially reads an issue that's reported on your repository and builds solutions like front to back, builds unit tests and everything. So that's kind of on the horizon, and that's like my entire job. So just wanted to bring that up. It's on YouTube. It's the GitHub keynote. The last 1 minute they announced that. Just thought that'd be interesting to note.
Yeah, it sure is. We should catch that. And it's hard to have eyes and ears everywhere, so I appreciate you letting us know.
Yeah, not entirely unexpected also. So I think while we can, it's better to jump into those clumsy enterprise businesses revolving around banking software, like something extremely outdated, where people have not heard about AI and will not be able to hear about it like in 10 years from now on. So this is, I think, the only way to like get your software engineering job untouched by the AI. So yeah. Probably I should not have dismissed that offer from the bank in Czech Republic like 5 years ago, but we'll see how that goes.
Oh man.
Yeah, guess that's it. Thank you everyone for joining, and see you in our Slack workspace. Thanks everyone who participated, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Max.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
Max. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you.
Goodbye.